The city of Vera stood under a sky filled with 1,000 silver lights. Towers of glass and metal reflected the glow of the twin moons, while quiet streets wound between rows of tall buildings. Most of the city slept at this hour, but in the upper levels of the communication hall, one room still had its lights on. Inside, Mira sat at her station, headphones resting gently over her ears. She was a communication officer, responsible for scanning deep space transmissions and maintaining the planet's information network. Most nights were the same. She listened to background static, occasional signals from trading vessels, and sometimes the faint hum of distant planetary chatter. It was quiet work, but she liked it. The silence gave her space to think. Her fingers moved across the control panel as she adjusted the frequency range. The monitors in front of her displayed long lines of data, scrolling endlessly. She leaned, back in her chair, sipping from a warm cup of tea. Then something unusual happened. A burst of sound broke through the steady static. At first it was just noise, like a sharp wind hitting a microphone. Mira frowned and adjusted the controls again. The noise cleared for a moment, and then she heard it. A voice. She froze. The voice was deep and hurried, speaking words she didn't recognize. It was not one of the standard galactic languages used in this region. She leaned closer, her heart beginning to beat faster. She rewound the recording and played it again. This time she caught more. The voice was repeating a short message, the same words over and over. It sounded human, but the accent was unlike anything she had heard before. Her training told her to report it immediately, but something made her hesitate. There was a strange emotion in the tone, almost as if the speaker was pleading for help. She opened an old translation program in her system. It took a few minutes, but the program began identifying certain words. When the translation appeared, Mira's eyes widened. The message was simple. This is Aaron, crash, need help, dangerous. The words were short and incomplete, but the meaning was clear enough. Someone named Aaron had crashed and was asking for help. Mira checked the signal origin. It came from far beyond the city walls, near the edge of the wildlands. No patrols had reported anything unusual in that area. Her thoughts raced. This was not a normal transmission, if it had come. From a trader, the frequency would match known ship channels. This signal was older, almost like it came from technology not used in decades. And yet, here it was, reaching her console in the dead of night. She bit her lip. The protocol was to log the transmission, send it to the Planetary Council, and wait for them to decide what to do. But she knew the Council. They would spend days verifying the source before sending any help. If this Aaron was hurt, he might not have days. Mira stood and looked out the large observation window. Beyond the city lights stretched miles of dark forest and rocky hills. Somewhere out there, a stranger had fallen from the sky. She didn't know who he was or why he had come, but she felt something pulling her toward the truth. She downloaded the signal data onto a small hand device and shut down her console. Her shift wasn't over, but she had made her choice. She walked quickly down the empty hallway and out into the cool night air. The streets were quiet. Only a few security drones moved along their patrol routes. Mira kept her head down, slipping between shadowed alleys until she reached the edge of the city. A tall metal wall marked the border. She approached a small maintenance gate, scanning her ID to open it. The gate clicked softly, and she stepped into the wildlands. The air outside the city was colder, sharper. Tall trees swayed gently in the wind, and the ground sloped downward into a valley. Mira adjusted her small shoulder light and began walking toward the coordinates marked on her device. For nearly an hour, she moved through uneven ground, careful to avoid the noise of breaking branches. She didn't know what dangers might be out here. The wildlands were home to fast-moving creatures and thick undergrowth that could trap a careless traveler. Still, she pressed on. Then she saw it, A faint orange glow flickered between the trees. She slowed her pace, crouching low as she approached. The glow came from a damaged spacecraft, half buried in the earth. Smoke drifted upward from a torn section of the hull. The design was strange, nothing like the ships built in Vera. Its surface was scratched and dented, with markings she couldn't read. A movement caught her eye. Someone was inside. She stepped closer and saw a man leaning against the open hatch. His clothes were torn, his arm was wrapped in a makeshift bandage, and his face was pale. He looked up at her with sharp, alert eyes. "You heard my call?" he said in a voice that still carried the strange accent. Mira hesitated. She understood most of the words now, thanks to the translation device in her ear. "You are Aaron?" "Yes," he said, nodding. "You came. I need help. Not just me. Your world is in danger." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" He looked past her, scanning the dark forest as if expecting something to appear. "They will come. Soon. I tried to stop them, but my ship—" He gestured toward the wreck. It was not enough. Mira felt a chill. She had no idea who they were, but his voice carried a weight that made her believe him. She knew she couldn't leave him here. "Can you walk?" she asked. "Not far," he admitted, leaning more heavily against the hatch. Mira stepped forward and offered her arm. "There's an old relay station not far from here. No one uses it. You can hide there while I find out more." He looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust her. Finally, he nodded. "Lead the way." They moved slowly through the dark, the only sound the crunch of leaves under their feet. Mira's mind was full of questions, but she kept them for later. All she knew was that tonight was no longer like any other night in the communication hall. Something had changed. Somewhere above them, the twin moons cast their light over the forest. The city of Vera slept, unaware that far beyond its walls, a stranger from another world had arrived. And for reasons she could not yet explain, Mira knew that meeting him would change everything. The path through the wildlands was rough and uneven. Mira guided Aran carefully, slowing her steps so he could keep his balance. His injured arm hung stiffly by his side, and every so often she saw his jaw tighten as if he was pushing through pain. The night was quiet except for the sound of their boots against the ground and the rustle of leaves in the wind. The air smelled faintly of smoke from his crashed ship. Mira kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone or something following them. "How far?" Aaron asked in his uneven Veran speech. "Not far now," she replied, pointing toward a dark shape ahead. "Old relay station. No one comes here anymore. It's safe." The relay station stood at the base of a rocky hill. Its outer wall was covered in moss, and one of its antenna towers leaned slightly to one side. The place had been abandoned for years, replaced by newer communication hubs closer to the city. Mira knew this one still had working doors and a power supply, though the systems were outdated. She led Aaron inside. The air smelled stale, but the interior was dry. Dust coated the floor, and faint moonlight streamed through cracks in the wall. Mira guided him to a bench in the corner. "Sit," she said. Aaron lowered himself slowly, his shoulders slumping with relief. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Mira moved around the small room, activating a portable light from her bag and setting it on a table. The glow filled the space with a soft warmth. She turned to him. "Tell me what happened. Why are you here?" He looked at her with steady eyes. "I was hunting them. The Zorath." The name meant nothing to Mira, but she didn't interrupt. "They are raiders," he continued, his voice low. "They destroy worlds, take resources, leave nothing alive. My ship followed them after they attacked an outpost near my home." "And your home? It's called Earth?" she asked. He nodded. Yes, humans live there like me. We have fought the Zorath before, but they adapt. I thought I could stop them before they reached your system. I failed. Mira felt a weight settle in her chest. She had heard of raider fleets before, but never ones that destroyed entire planets. How do you know they are coming here? I tracked their course, he said. They will pass through this sector soon. Your world is rich. They will not ignore it. She paced slowly, thinking. If you tell the Planetary Council, they will prepare. His expression darkened. No. If they wait for proof, it will be too late. You said your leaders move slowly. The Zorath move fast. She stopped pacing. He was right. The council would hold endless meetings, debate every decision, and only act when the threat was already upon them. She had seen it happen before with smaller dangers, but this sounded far worse. What do you want me to do? She asked quietly. Help me repair my ship's systems, he said. Not to fly, it cannot fly, but to send a warning to Earth. If they receive my signal, they will send help. Will they arrive in time? Maybe. But if they come, we have a chance. Mira hesitated. Helping him meant breaking the rules of her position. She could be removed from the communication hall. She could even be restricted from leaving the city. But if he was telling the truth, doing nothing would be far worse. She walked to the small storage cabinet and pulled out a container of water and some ration packs. Eat, she said. You need your strength. As he ate in silence, she studied him. His features were sharp but tired, and his movements were careful, as if every step carried a hidden ache. Yet there was a kind of determination in his eyes she had rarely seen in anyone. When he finished, he spoke again. I need access to your city's signal arrays. The relay here is too weak. It cannot reach Earth. Mira thought about it. The arrays were guarded, and only authorized officers could approach them. But she had clearance, and at night the patrols were light. She could get him close enough to connect a portable transmitter. I can take you tomorrow night, she said. You will have to hide during the day. Aaron nodded. I understand. The rest of the night passed quietly. Mira dozed in a chair while Aaron rested on the bench, his breathing slow and steady. When the first light of dawn began to seep through the cracks, she stood and looked out at the forest. The city walls were far in the distance. Beyond them, people would be starting their day, unaware of the danger creeping toward them from the stars. She wondered how many days they had before the Zorath arrived. By midday, Mira had to return to the city to avoid suspicion. She told Aaron she would bring supplies, tools, extra food, and a portable transmitter when night came again. He watched her as she left, his gaze thoughtful but unreadable. The walk back to the city felt longer. Every noise in the forest made her glance around. The idea of an unknown fleet approaching her planet had lodged itself firmly in her mind. When she reached the maintenance gate, she slipped inside without trouble. The city was alive now, vendors setting up stalls, workers heading to their posts, and children laughing as they ran through narrow streets. It all seemed so fragile now that she knew what might be coming. At the communication hall, she acted as if nothing had happened. She took her post, scanned signals, and responded to routine requests. But her mind was far from her work. She kept thinking about Aaron's warning, the look in his eyes when he spoke of the Zorath, and the urgency in his voice. She knew she could not tell anyone. Even her closest friends would question her. Some might even report her for helping a stranger from another world. The rules of Vera were strict when it came to off-world contact without council approval. The hours dragged on until the sky began to darken again. As soon as her shift ended, she gathered what she needed: tools, food, water, a spare blanket, and the portable transmitter she had signed out under the pretense of maintenance work. She packed them into a simple carry bag and left the hall. The night air felt colder than before. She made her way back through the maintenance gate, her steps quick and steady. The forest seemed quieter than it had the night before, and the moonlight cast long shadows across the path. When she reached the relay station, Aaron was already standing outside, leaning on the wall. His face lit slightly when he saw her. "You came," he said simply. "I said I would," she replied, handing him the bag. "Eat something. Then we plan." Under the dim light of the portable lamp, they went over the steps for the next night. Mira would lead him through the lesser-used alleys to the edge of the signal array facility. He would set up the transmitter, connect to the main system, and send the warning to Earth. They would have to work quickly to avoid detection. As they spoke, a sense of determination grew between them. Mira no longer saw him only as a stranger. He was a fighter who had risked his life to protect a world that was not his own. And now, without quite meaning to, she had become part of his mission. Somewhere above, the stars shimmered in the cold night sky. Neither of them knew if help would come in time, but both understood one truth. The fight for Vera's survival had already begun, even if no one else realized it yet. The night came quickly, painting the city of Vera in silver and shadow. Mira moved quietly through the narrow alleys, her hood pulled low to hide her face. She carried a small pack on her shoulder, the weight of its contents reminding her of the task ahead. Inside were the tools and parts Aaron needed to connect his transmitter to the city's signal array. The streets were calm at this hour. A few patrol drones drifted past, their faint lights sweeping over the stone walls. Mira waited for each one to pass before slipping forward. She had walked these paths many times before, but tonight every turn felt different. Her heart beat faster, knowing she was about to break more rules than she had in her entire life. She reached the maintenance gate without trouble. Beyond it lay the wildlands, silent under the glow of the twin moons. The air outside the walls was crisp and still carrying the scent of pine from the distant hills. Mira moved quickly, her feet knowing the way to the relay station by memory now. Aaron was waiting inside this time. He was seated at the old wooden bench, his injured arm resting in a sling she had given him the night before. The portable lamp cast his face in soft light, revealing lines of fatigue and something else. Focus. "You came early," he said. "It's better to start now," Mira replied, setting the pack on the table. "We have to be careful." He opened the pack and examined the tools. "This will work. If we can get within 20 meters of your array, I can connect to the main signal. The hard part will be staying unseen." Mira gave a small smile. "I know paths the patrols don't use." Aaron met her gaze for a moment, then looked back at the tools. "You trust me more than most would." "I don't trust easily," she admitted. "But I've been watching you. You haven't lied to me." For a moment, he seemed to weigh her words, as if deciding how much of himself to reveal. On Earth, trust is not given freely either. When you face danger together, you learn quickly who will stand with you. She sat across from him. "You've fought the Zorath before?" "Yes," he said quietly. "The first time we were not ready. They came without warning. They burned our farms, stripped our cities, and took anyone who could work as a prisoner. We fought them for months. Many didn't survive. But we learned their ways. And when they came again, we were ready." His voice was calm, but Mira saw the flicker of memory in his eyes. She could almost imagine the battles he described. Dark, skies lit by fire, the sound of ships falling from the air, the smell of smoke. "What makes you think Vera can fight them?" she asked. "Because I have seen what happens when you don't," he answered. "Your people are strong, but they don't know this enemy. If Earth sends help, you have a chance." Mira leaned back, her thoughts tangled. She wanted to believe him. Part of her already did. Yet there was still the risk. If they were caught, the council might call him a spy, and she would be branded a traitor. They spent the next hour going over the plan. Mira sketched the route on a scrap of paper, marking where patrols were likely to be. Aaron memorized each turn carefully. They agreed on signals to use if they had to hide or change direction. When the preparations were done, Mira handed him a ration pack and a bottle of water. "Eat before we leave. It will be a long walk." He nodded and began to eat, glancing at her between bites. "You are risking much for me, Mira. I will not forget it." Her eyes softened, but she didn't answer. They left the relay station, while the moons were still high. The forest around them was quiet except for the occasional call of a nightbird. Mira led the way, moving quickly but silently over the uneven ground. Aaron followed close behind, his steps steady despite his injury. By the time they reached the outer wall of the city, Mira could hear the faint hum of the array's power core. The tall antenna towers rose above the rooftops, their blinking lights, marking the heart of Vera's communications. "This is the hard part," she whispered. "Stay close." They slipped into the city through the maintenance gate, then wound their way through a series of narrow alleys that smelled faintly of metal and stone. The shadows were deep here, and most of the buildings were storage units for spare equipment. When they reached the edge of the array facility, Mira crouched behind a low wall. A pair of security drones floated lazily near the entrance. Their sensors sweeping back and forth. "2 drones," she murmured. "They rotate every 4 minutes. When they turn, we move." They waited, counting the seconds. When the drones drifted out of sight, Mira darted forward with Aaron close behind. They crossed the open ground and reached the base of the main signal tower. Aaron knelt, unpacking the transmitter. His hands moved quickly, connecting wires and adjusting small panels. Mira kept watch, her eyes moving constantly between the shadows and the patrol routes. "Almost ready," he said after a few minutes. "Hurry," she urged. He tapped a final command into the device. A faint green light began to blink. "Signal sent. It will reach Earth in 4 hours if the relay holds." Mira felt a small surge of relief. Now we leave before they notice. They retraced their steps, avoiding the drones and slipping back into the alleys. The city was silent except for the faint hum of distant machinery. When they finally reached the maintenance gate, Mira allowed herself to breathe again. Outside, the walls, the forest, welcomed them with darkness and open air. They didn't speak until they reached the safety of the relay station. "It is done," Aaron said, setting the transmitter on the table. "Now we wait." Mira nodded. "How will we know if they received it? If Earth replies, we will hear it. If they do not, then we prepare without them." She sank into a chair, feeling the weight of the night settle over her. Aaron looked at her with quiet gratitude. "Whatever happens next, you have given your world a chance." For the first time, Mira felt the threads of trust between them tighten into something stronger. It was not just about the mission anymore. It was about 2 people from different worlds who had chosen to stand together against the unknown. Above the forest, the stars glittered in the black sky. Somewhere out there, an answer might already be on its way, but until it arrived, Mira and Aaron would have to face the shadows together. The following day passed slowly for Mira. She spent her shift at the communication hall listening to the usual flow of signals from trade ships and nearby colonies, but her thoughts kept returning to the night before. Somewhere beyond the stars, Aaron's warning was traveling toward Earth. She imagined it racing through the void, carrying with it the fate of Vera. Every time she looked at the clock, she calculated how many hours had passed since the signal was sent. By her estimate, Earth might have received it by now, if nothing went wrong. If the relay failed or the signal was intercepted, there would be no help. When her shift ended, Mira left the hall quickly. She slipped through the streets carrying a small satchel of supplies for Aaron. The sun had dipped low, casting golden light over the rooftops, and shadows stretched across the alleys. At the relay station, she found Aaron repairing a small power unit using the tools she had brought him earlier in the week. His injured arm was still bound, but he worked with focus, each movement deliberate. "You're early," he said without looking up. "I couldn't wait," she admitted. "Any reply yet?" He shook his head. "No. It may take time. Even if they received it, they must decide to act. Earth has its own battles to fight." Mira set the satchel on the table. "Then we prepare as if no help is coming." Aaron looked at her carefully. "You're certain you want to be part of this? The Council will not forgive you if they find out." "They won't find out," she said firmly. "But I need to know what happens if the Zorath arrive before Earth's fleet." He straightened, placing the tools aside. "Then we must convince your people to unite their defenses now, before the enemy is even in sight." Mira gave a short laugh without humor. "You don't know the Council. They won't change their plans without undeniable proof, and proof will come only when it's too late." "Then we give them proof," Aaron replied. She frowned. "How?" He began to explain. "The Zorath left a trail of destruction wherever they went. Burned ships, ruined satellites, broken colonies. If they could detect the debris field of the last colony they attacked, the evidence would be impossible to deny. Their last target is on a direct line to here," he said, pointing to a rough star chart he had drawn. "A small mining outpost. If we can recover data from their beacon, it will show the attack. Your council will have no choice but to listen." Mira stared at the chart. "That's in deep space. We don't have a ship that can reach it quickly." "My shuttle can reach it," he said. "But it needs repairs. The hull is stable enough for one last flight if I can fix the navigation systems." She hesitated. "Flying in your condition? It's dangerous. Waiting is more dangerous," he countered. They worked through the night on the shuttle. Mira fetched parts from the old relay equipment while Aaron rewired panels inside the cockpit. She had never worked on a ship before, but under his guidance, she learned quickly how to strip a wire, fit a connector, and bypass damaged circuits. Hours passed, and the cold night air seeped into the station. Mira's hands were sore, and Aaron's face was pale from the effort, but by the time dawn touched the horizon, the navigation display flickered to life. "It will fly," Aaron said, leaning back with a tired smile. Mira looked at the glowing screen. "When do we leave?" "Tonight. We can't risk the Council detecting the launch in daylight." The day felt longer than ever. Mira returned to the city, forcing herself to act as though nothing had changed. She smiled at her co-workers, answered routine calls, and logged reports as usual. Inside, her mind counted the hours until she could slip away again. When night fell, she returned to the relay station to find Aaron already preparing the shuttle. He had loaded food, water, and emergency supplies into the small cargo bay. "This is not a long trip," he told her. "But it is dangerous. If the Zorath left patrol ships behind, we must avoid them." She stepped into the narrow cockpit beside him. The controls were worn but functional, the glass canopy giving a clear view of the star-filled sky. The launch was smooth. The shuttle rose quietly from the forest clearing, leaving the dark shape of the relay station behind. Mira's stomach tightened as the ground fell away, the lights of Vera shrinking until they were nothing but faint glimmers. Once they cleared the atmosphere, the stars became brighter, endless points of light stretching in all directions. Aaron adjusted the course, and the shuttle sped toward the mining outpost's coordinates. For a while, they traveled in silence. Mira kept her eyes on the stars, thinking about how small her world looked from up here. She wondered how many other worlds had faced the same threat, how many had survived. After several hours, the navigation system beeped. Aaron pointed out the forward window. "There." A broken shape drifted in the darkness. As they drew closer, Mira saw that it had once been a station. The metal was twisted and burned, The outer panels ripped apart. Pieces of debris floated. Nearby, slowly spinning in the void. Mira swallowed. "This is what they do?" "This is only what they leave behind," Aaron said quietly. They approached cautiously, scanning for any active signals. The only beacon still working was faint, its light blinking weakly. Aaron maneuvered the shuttle closer and matched its slow spin. "I'll go out," he said, reaching for a small oxygen mask and a tether. "You can't," Mira said quickly. "You're still injured." "Then you must," he replied. "The beacon is just there. Pull the core unit and bring it back. It will hold the station's final records." Mira took a deep breath and nodded. Moments later, she was outside the shuttle, her boots gripping the surface of the wreck. The silence of space pressed around her, broken only by the faint sound of her breathing inside the mask. She reached the beacon, unfastened the core, and secured it to her belt. When she returned to the shuttle, Aaron connected the core to the onboard display. Lines of data appeared. Timestamps, warnings, distress calls. The final entries were short and chaotic. Multiple ships detected, weapons, fire, shields failing, then nothing. "This will convince them," Mira said. "It will have to," Aaron replied, setting the course for home. The shuttle turned toward Vera, leaving the ruined station behind. As the stars shifted around them, Mira knew they were racing, against time. If the Zorath were already on the move, the evidence they carried might be the only thing that could unite her world before it was too late. Mira walked into the great hall of the Veran Council. The tall stone pillars and glowing light panels gave the place an air of authority. Leaders from every district sat in a wide circle, their eyes fixed on her. She could feel the weight of their stares as she prepared to speak. In her hands was the plan that she and Aaron had worked on for nights. It was the only chance she saw to save the planet. She took a deep breath and began explaining the details. She spoke about uniting the different defense sectors, about moving resources to the outer borders, and about using older but faster ships for scouting. She knew her ideas would sound unusual, but they had worked for humans on Earth many times. Some council members leaned forward with interest. Others folded their arms, clearly doubtful. One of the elders, a man named Doran, spoke first. His voice was calm but firm. He said the plan was risky and that the Veran defense had always been handled by their own people without outside influence. Another leader, a woman named Kalra, spoke in Mira's support. She pointed out that the alien fleet was unlike anything they had faced before, and that unity was the only hope. The debate grew heated. Voices overlapped, and accusations of fear and weakness filled the air. While Mira stood in the middle, she kept her face steady, but inside her heart pounded. Every moment spent in argument was a moment lost in preparing for the attack. She thought of Aaron, still hidden in the abandoned relay station, waiting for news. He had risked his life to reach Vera, and now the council might waste the only advantage they had. The discussion went on for hours. At last, the council leader, a tall and quiet figure named Veran, raised his hand for silence. He said the plan would be considered, but no final decision would be made until the next meeting. Mira wanted to protest, but she knew it would not help. She bowed her head respectfully and left the hall. That night, she returned to the relay station. Aaron was repairing a damaged console when she entered. His eyes searched her face, and he could tell the outcome from her expression. She told him the council had not decided, and that time was running out. Aaron clenched his fists and looked at the small device he had kept hidden, the ship's distress beacon. He explained to Mira that if he activated the beacon, Earth's fleet might pick up the signal. If they did, they could arrive before the alien fleet struck. But there was a danger. The signal was strong and could be detected by the enemy. If that happened, they might attack early, and many civilians could die before the defenses were ready. Mira felt the weight of the choice pressing down on her. She trusted Aaron, but she also understood the risk. Her people were not used to sudden war. If the aliens came before they were prepared, entire districts could fall in hours. She sat beside him, her mind racing through every possibility. Outside, the sky was dark, and the wind swept across the empty plains. The silence made the moment feel even heavier. Aaron told her that he had been in battles before, that sometimes doing nothing was more dangerous than acting. But he also said the choice was not his alone. This was her world, her people. They argued quietly, each trying to see the other's side. Mira spoke of the fear and confusion that would spread if the attack came too soon. Aaron spoke of the destruction that would come if they waited too long. Neither had a clear answer, but both knew that doing nothing would soon no longer be an option. 2 days later, Mira received a report from the outer colonies. Communication had been lost with 2 of them. Scouts believed enemy ships were already in the area, testing the planet's defenses. The news spread quickly through the city and panic began to rise among the people. The council called an emergency meeting. This time, Mira noticed more of the members looking uneasy. Some now supported her plan more strongly, but others still hesitated. Doran spoke again, warning that rushing into battle without proper preparation would lead to disaster. Kalra countered, saying that hesitation would only invite a swift defeat. Mira realized the council might never fully agree. She left the meeting early and went straight to the relay station. Aaron was waiting, looking at the beacon. The decision had been slowly forming in her mind since the colony's silence. She told him she was ready to act. They worked together through the night. Aaron made sure the beacon was tuned to send the signal toward Earth's known patrol routes. Mira used her access codes to link the signal through the city's communication array, boosting its range without alerting the defense network. When the moment came, Aaron's hand hovered over the activation switch. He looked at her, his eyes steady. She gave a single nod. The beacon lit up, sending a sharp, powerful pulse into the darkness of space. The hum of the device filled the station, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Mira felt a mix of relief and fear. The signal was out, but so was the risk. Somewhere far away, Earth's fleet might be preparing to come. Somewhere closer, the alien ships might have just noticed the source of the transmission. Aaron turned to her and said that now they had to prepare for the worst. The alien fleet could change its plans, and Vera needed to be ready. Mira agreed. She knew that once the council learned what she had done, her position might be lost forever. But she also knew that if it meant saving her people, it was a price she could pay. In the distance, the first faint red glows appeared in the night sky. Scout ships moving toward the planet. The breaking point had come, and there was no turning back. The night sky was clear, and the twin moons cast soft light over the city of Vera. Mira stood on a small hill outside the city walls, her eyes fixed on the stars. The air was cool and still, but inside her heart, a storm was growing. Aaron joined, her quietly, his steps careful on the rocky ground. He looked tired, but his eyes held a steady calm. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "They are coming," he said simply. "The fleet will arrive soon." Mira nodded, her breath catching. She looked down at her hands, clenched into fists. "We have prepared as much as we can, but it may not be enough." Aaron studied the city below. The lights flickered softly, and the distant hum of machines filled the night air. "Your people are strong," he said. "They just need to believe they can win." She looked up at him, the weight of her choice heavy on her. "This is my home. My family lives there. I have never wanted to leave." He smiled softly. "I know, and I do not ask you to forget that." Mira's thoughts drifted to the council meetings, the arguments, and the fear that had filled the halls. She thought about the people who still doubted the danger, who wanted to hide behind old traditions instead of facing the threat together. "Aaron," she said quietly, "if we survive this, what will happen to us? To our worlds?" He looked at her with a seriousness that made her heart ache. "That is the question. You must choose what you want for your future. You can stay here and rebuild, or you can come with me to Earth." Her eyes searched his face, looking for answers. The thought of leaving everything she had ever known was frightening, but the idea of facing the future alone was even harder. "We fight together," she said at last, "and then we decide." They returned to the city as the first signs of the alien fleet appeared on the horizon. Ships of strange design moved silently through space, their dark hulls reflecting the light of distant stars. The city's defenses activated, sending beams of light toward the incoming fleet. Alarms sounded through the streets, calling citizens to shelters and stations. Mira and Aaron moved quickly to the command center, joining the team coordinating the response. The battle was fierce. Explosions lit the sky, and the sound of distant blasts echoed through the city. Despite their efforts, the alien ships pushed forward, testing the defenses and searching for weak points. Mira watched as the city's forces adapted, using new tactics inspired by Aaron's knowledge. The unity of the people became their greatest strength. They fought not just for survival, but for the future of their world. Hours passed like this, the tension never easing. Then, just as hope began to waver, a signal came through from Earth's fleet. Reinforcements were arriving faster than expected. The tides of battle turned. The alien ships faltered, caught between Vera's defenses and the human fleet. Slowly, the attackers began to retreat, their dark shapes disappearing into the vastness of space. Cheers rose across the command center. Mira felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had won this battle, but the war was not over. Later, as the city settled into a cautious calm, Aaron turned to Mira. "The choice is yours now." She looked at the stars again, thinking of her family, her friends, and the life she had always known. Then she looked at Aaron, the man who had changed everything in a single night. With a steady voice, she said, "I will come with you." Together, they stepped into the future, two worlds joined by hope, courage, and a love that had grown in the shadow of war. The dawn broke softly over Vera, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The city was quiet now, resting after the long night of battle. Mira stood on the balcony of a small home near the city's edge, looking out over the streets where people had begun to emerge. The fight had changed everything. The alien fleet had retreated, but their threat still loomed in the distance. The people of Vera were weary but hopeful. They had seen the strength of unity and the power of courage. Aaron came beside Mira, his hand warm as he took hers. His eyes reflected the light of the rising sun and something softer, a promise of what could be. "We have time now," he said, "to rebuild, to heal, and to plan for the future." Mira nodded. "But it is not just about survival anymore. It is about making sure our worlds never face this alone again." Together, they walked through the city, greeted by faces filled with gratitude and determination. Leaders approached to thank Aaron for his help, and citizens shared stories of bravery during the attack. Mira saw children playing in the streets again, their laughter a sign of hope returning. Despite the joy, Mira knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The wounds of war ran deep, and there was much to rebuild. But with Aaron by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. One evening, as the moons rose high, Mira and Aaron stood at the city's spaceport. The shuttle that had brought Aaron to Vera stood ready for the journey back to Earth. The engines hummed softly, waiting for the command to launch. Mira turned to Aaron, her heart heavy but determined. "I have made my choice." He smiled gently. "I know. She stepped onto the shuttle with him, leaving behind the world she had always known but carrying its memories with her. As the ship lifted off, the city of Vera grew smaller beneath them, a bright jewel surrounded by darkness. The journey through space was quiet. Mira watched the stars drift past the windows, thinking of the future they would build together. A future where two worlds could stand side by side, stronger than ever before. When the ship finally approached Earth, Mira felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She wondered how different life would be there, how she would fit into a world so far from home. Aaron reached out and took her hand once more. "We will face it together." As the shuttle touched down, they stepped out into a new world, a place of endless possibilities and new challenges. Mira looked up at the sky, feeling hope bloom inside her. One night had changed everything.